What if one of the most advanced stone structures ever discovered was not built by a lost high civilization, not by aliens, but by humans at a time when history says they were still primitive hunter-gatherers? And what if this single site quietly forces us to question everything we think we know about the origins of civilization itself? In this video, we explore what many researchers have called an impossible megalithic anomaly, a monumental stone complex dated to roughly 12,000 years ago, a time long before agriculture, metallurgy, or written language were supposed to exist, and yet the evidence, uncovered through decades of archaeological work and scientific testing, suggests that complex organization, symbolic thinking, and large-scale construction may have emerged far earlier than traditional timelines allow. And at the center of this debate stands Göbekli Tepe, a prehistoric site located in southeastern Turkey, whose discovery has reshaped archaeological conversations across the world. First identified in the 1960s, but largely dismissed as an unremarkable hill, Göbekli Tepe was not fully excavated until the 1990s, when archaeologist Klaus Schmidt recognized that the stone fragments scattered across the surface were not debris, but the tops of massive, T-shaped limestone pillars carefully carved, deliberately arranged, and intentionally buried. And as excavation continued, it became clear that this was not a settlement, not a defensive structure, and not a tomb, but something entirely different, a ceremonial complex built with astonishing precision by people who officially should not have been capable of such a feat. Radiocarbon dating of organic material associated with the site consistently places its construction around 9600 BCE, more than 6,000 years older than Stonehenge, and predating the pyramids of Egypt by nearly 7 millennia, a timeline supported by multiple independent studies according to reports published in reputable archaeological journals, and this alone is what makes Göbekli Tepe so disruptive, because at that point in human history, the dominant model suggests humans lived in small mobile bands, relying on hunting and gathering with little social hierarchy and minimal long-term planning. Yet the structures at Göbekli Tepe tell a very different story, because the site consists of circular and oval enclosures, each formed by massive stone pillars weighing up to 20 tons, arranged with geometric precision and decorated with intricate carvings of animals such as foxes, lions, snakes, boars, birds, and scorpions, all rendered with a level of artistry that implies skilled specialists rather than casual decoration. And at the center of each enclosure stand two taller pillars, facing one another, often interpreted as stylized human figures, complete with carved arms, hands, belts, and loincloths, suggesting symbolic or ritual significance rather than simple architectural support. The labor required to quarry, transport, carve, and erect these stones is staggering, because limestone was extracted using stone tools moved without wheels or draft animals and positioned upright with remarkable accuracy and experimental. Archaeology suggests that such work would require coordinated teams of dozens, if not hundreds of people, sustained over long periods, raising a fundamental question: why would hunter-gatherers whose survival depended on mobility and flexibility commit themselves to such an enormous fixed construction project? One hypothesis increasingly discussed among scholars is that Göbekli Tepe represents a ritual center that predated permanent settlements, a place where dispersed groups gathered seasonally for ceremonies, feasting, and social bonding, and that these gatherings themselves may have driven the later development of agriculture, rather than the other way around, turning the traditional narrative of civilization on its head. Evidence supporting this idea includes the absence of domestic dwellings at the site, the lack of early farming tools in the earliest layers, and the presence of animal remains suggesting large communal feasts, indicating that people came here not to live, but to participate in something shared, symbolic, and socially binding. Even more puzzling is the fact that after centuries of use, the builders deliberately buried the enclosures, filling them with rubble, broken tools, and animal bones, preserving the site remarkably well, but leaving modern researchers to speculate about the meaning of this act, because it suggests intentional closure rather than abandonment, as if each structure had a ceremonial life cycle completed and then sealed away, a behavior that implies complex belief systems and long-term cultural memory. Critics of the more radical interpretations caution against overstating the case, arguing that while Göbekli Tepe is extraordinary, it does not necessarily prove the existence of a lost advanced civilization, and most mainstream archaeologists emphasize that human cognitive abilities were already fully developed by this period, meaning that complex behavior was possible even without farming or metal tools. Yet even these more cautious voices acknowledge that the site forces a re-evaluation of how and when social complexity emerged. Beyond Göbekli Tepe itself, similar, though less elaborate, sites have been identified in the surrounding region, suggesting that this was not an isolated anomaly, but part of a broader cultural tradition that flourished briefly and then disappeared, leaving behind stone, symbolism, and unanswered questions. And this raises another unsettling possibility, that early human history may be marked by cycles of innovation and loss, where knowledge and social organization rose, faded, and were reinvented multiple times. Popular speculation has gone even further, connecting Göbekli Tepe to myths of ancient floods, lost golden ages, or forgotten civilizations. But while such ideas capture the imagination, experts caution that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And at present, the archaeological record supports a story of human ingenuity rather than unknown technologies, reminding us that underestimating our ancestors may be the greatest mistake of all. Still, the emotional impact of standing before stones erected 12,000 years ago, carved with meaning by hands long turned to dust, is profound, because Göbekli Tepe reveals that the impulse to gather, to believe, to symbolize, and to build something larger than oneself is as old as humanity itself. And as excavations continue using modern tools, such as ground-penetrating radar and refined dating techniques, researchers believe that only a small fraction of the site has been uncovered, meaning that the full story of this megalithic anomaly is still hidden beneath the soil, waiting to challenge us even further. This is only the first part of the story, because to fully understand why this site is considered impossible, we must explore how it compares to other ancient megaliths, what it tells us about prehistoric religion, and how it forces historians to rethink the very definition of civilization, a journey we will continue in the next part, because sometimes the past is not just older than we imagined, but far more complex than we ever expected.